In the 1970s, American mothers made 30 homemade snacks from scratch that kids devoured after school. These snacks were famous across America and filled every kitchen. Then they all started vanishing without explanation. Number 1 was made in giant batches and stored in canisters. Number 9 got its name from dogs. Number 10 used hang powder frozen into ice. Let's rediscover these 30 forgotten homemade snacks from the 1970s that disappeared from American kitchens. Chex Mix was the undisputed king of 1970s homemade snacks, and every American mother guarded her personal recipe like a family treasure. This addictive savory mix combined rice Chex, corn Chex, and wheat Chex cereals with pretzel sticks, mixed nuts, and sometimes bagel chips, all coated in seasoned butter and slow-baked until perfectly crispy. The original Chex Mix recipe first appeared on cereal boxes in the 1950s, but the snack reached peak popularity during the 1970s, when mothers baked massive batches to fill large glass canisters that sat on kitchen counters. Making Chex Mix required melting an entire stick of butter with Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, onion powder, and seasoned salt in a roasting pan, then tossing in the cereal and nut mixture until everything was coated. The pan went into a low oven for about an hour, with stirring required every 15 minutes to prevent burning. The aroma of baking Chex Mix filled entire homes and announced to children that snack time had arrived. Families consumed Chex Mix while watching television, during homework sessions, or straight from the canister after school. The homemade version delivered a perfect balance of buttery, garlicky, and salty flavors that no store-bought version could match. By the 1990s, commercially produced Chex Mix flooded grocery stores, and the laborious homemade tradition faded rapidly. Rice Krispies treats became a 1970s kitchen staple because they required only 3 ingredients, took minutes to make, and disappeared even faster once kids discovered them. These chewy, marshmallow-bound cereal squares were technically invented in 1939 by a Kellogg's employee, but they exploded in popularity during the 1970s when mothers needed quick, reliable snacks for hungry children. The recipe was so simple that children could make them unsupervised. Melt butter in a large pot, add an entire bag of marshmallows and stir until smooth. Remove from heat, mix in Rice Krispies cereal, and press into a buttered pan. The key was working quickly before the marshmallow mixture hardened. Mothers often doubled or tripled batches because a single pan rarely lasted through the afternoon. Some families added food coloring to make them festive for holidays, while creative mothers mixed in chocolate chips, peanut butter, or butterscotch chips for variety. The treats had to cool completely before cutting, though impatient children often ate them warm with marshmallow strings stretching between pieces. Rice Krispies treats became synonymous with home baking, school bake sales, and after-school snacking throughout the decade. By the 2000s, individually wrapped store-bought versions dominated, but these convenience treats lacked the fresh-made texture and generous marshmallow-to-cereal ratio that characterized homemade 1970s versions. Popcorn balls were sticky, sweet, softball-sized treats that mothers made during fall and winter, especially around Halloween and Christmas, when fresh popcorn was abundant. These homemade snacks combined freshly popped corn with a sugar syrup that bound everything into compact spheres. Making popcorn balls was messy, time-consuming work that required planning and patience. Mothers popped corn on the stovetop in a large covered pot with oil, then prepared a boiling sugar syrup using white sugar, corn syrup, butter, and vanilla. The hot syrup was poured over the popcorn in a large bowl and mixed quickly before it hardened. Then came the tricky part, shaping the sticky mixture into balls while it was still warm but cool enough to handle without burning. Mothers buttered their hands heavily to prevent sticking, working fast to form uniform spheres before the syrup set. Some families added food coloring to make orange balls for Halloween, or red and green for Christmas. The finished popcorn balls were wrapped individually in plastic wrap or wax paper and stored in tins. Children loved the sweet, crunchy texture, and the challenge of eating them without getting syrup all over their faces. By the 1990s, store-bought popcorn balls and microwave popcorn replaced the homemade tradition entirely.
Many of you have been asking where to find these recipes. We've gathered hundreds of them from the Depression era through the 1970s in our cookbook, Grandma's Kitchen. Complete instructions, pro tips in 10 chapters. Link is in the description below. Now, let's get back to the video.
Ants on a Log earned its whimsical name from the appearance of raisins sitting like little ants on a log of celery filled with peanut butter. This simple, nutritious snack became a 1970s favorite because it combined protein, fruit, and vegetables in a form children actually wanted to eat. Mothers appreciated that ants on a log required no cooking, no baking, and minimal cleanup while delivering actual nutrition instead of pure sugar. Making them was straightforward. Wash celery stalks, cut them into 3 or 4 inch pieces, fill the hollow center with creamy peanut butter using a butter knife, and press raisins into the peanut butter in a row. Some creative mothers substituted cream cheese for peanut butter or used dried cranberries instead of raisins, creating endless variations. The name made the snack fun and appealing to children who might otherwise refuse raw vegetables. Ants on a Log appeared regularly in school lunches, after-school snacks, and party platters throughout the decade. The combination of crunchy celery, creamy peanut butter, and chewy raisins provided satisfying textural contrast. By the 2000s, pre-packaged snack foods and concerns about peanut allergies reduced Ants on a Log's popularity significantly. Jell-O Jigglers transformed ordinary gelatin into handheld finger food that children could grab and eat without plates or spoons. These firm, brightly colored gelatin squares became a 1970s phenomenon after Jell-O promoted the concept heavily through television commercials and magazine advertisements. Unlike regular Jell-O that required bowls and spoons, Jigglers used less water to create a firmer consistency that could be cut into shapes and eaten by hand. Mothers made Jigglers by dissolving 2 packages of Jell-O in boiling water using half the normal liquid amount, then pouring the mixture into a 9x13 pan and refrigerating until completely set. Once firm, the gelatin was cut into squares, rectangles, or fun shapes using cookie cutters. Children loved the bright neon colors, cherry red, lime green, orange, and grape purple, and the slightly rubbery texture that wiggled when shaken. Jigglers appeared at birthday parties, school lunches, picnics, and regular afternoon snacks throughout the 1970s and 1980s. Some mothers layered multiple colors to create rainbow effects, or used alphabet cookie cutters for educational snacks. The concept was simple but revolutionary, turning Jell-O from a sit-down dessert into portable finger food, 5 homemade snacks gone. Chex Mix, Rice Krispies treats, popcorn balls, Ants on a Log, and Jell-O Jigglers all vanished when convenience replaced effort. Mothers stopped baking giant batches. Pre-made versions filled stores. The next 5 snacks required even less work, but still disappeared from American kitchens. Cinnamon sugar toast was the simplest possible snack that 1970s children could make themselves without adult supervision or cooking skills. This beloved treat required only bread, butter, cinnamon, and sugar, ingredients every household kept in constant supply. Making it was foolproof. Toast bread in the toaster. Spread softened butter generously across the hot surface while it melted. Then sprinkle a mixture of cinnamon and sugar over everything. The heat from the toast melted the butter and slightly dissolved the sugar, creating a sweet, spiced coating. The smell of cinnamon filled kitchens within seconds, announcing someone had arrived home. Mothers approved of cinnamon sugar toast because it kept children busy and satisfied, without creating mess or requiring expensive ingredients. Some families made it for breakfast on weekends, serving multiple pieces per person. The treat delivered immediate gratification with minimal effort, making it perfect for impatient, hungry children. By the 2000s, pre-packaged toaster pastries and frozen breakfast items replaced simple homemade toast. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches were not just lunch food in the 1970s. They were the ultimate after-school snack that children made themselves while mothers finished work or prepared dinner. Unlike carefully packed lunch sandwiches, after-school PB&Js were thick, messy, and made exactly how each child preferred. The process was ritual. Pull out bread, unscrew both jars, spread peanut butter thickly on one slice, spread jelly or jam on the other, press together, and eat immediately. Some children cut their sandwiches diagonally, others straight across, and many ate them whole without cutting at all. Brand loyalty was fierce. Families swore by either Skippy or Jif peanut butter, and jelly preferences ranged from Welch's grape to Smucker's strawberry. The 1970s saw chunky peanut butter gain popularity alongside smooth, giving children more options. After-school PB&Js were eaten standing at the kitchen counter, sitting at the table doing homework, or carried outside to eat while playing. A glass of cold milk was mandatory accompaniment. The combination of creamy peanut butter and sweet jelly on soft white bread provided comfort, calories, and satisfaction. By the 2000s, peanut allergies and health concerns about processed foods reduced PB&J's dominance significantly. Pre-made Uncrustables and alternative nut butters replaced the simple homemade tradition. Chocolate chip cookies were the most baked, most requested, and most beloved homemade cookie in 1970s America. The smell of fresh chocolate chip cookies baking announced to the entire neighborhood that someone's mother was home and kids were welcome. Most mothers made them from the Toll House recipe printed on Nestlé chocolate chip bags. The same recipe created in 1938, but perfected during the 1970s when home baking reached its peak. The process required creaming softened butter with white and brown sugars until fluffy, beating in eggs and vanilla, mixing in flour with baking soda and salt, and folding in an entire bag of chocolate chips. Some mothers added chopped walnuts, though this divided families into pro-nut and anti-nut camps. The cookies baked at 375 degrees for exactly 9 to 11 minutes, emerging golden brown with edges crispy and centers still slightly soft. Smart mothers hid half the batch immediately because children would eat an entire sheet while the cookies were still warm. Fresh chocolate chip cookies disappeared within hours, leaving only crumbs and empty milk glasses. Store-bought cookies existed, but were considered inferior emergency substitutes. By the 2000s, refrigerated cookie dough and pre-made cookies dominated, and fewer families baked from scratch. Puppy chow earned its memorable name because the finished snack resembled the nuggets of dry dog food found in pet food bags, though it tasted infinitely better than anything meant for animals. This no-bake snack mix combined Chex cereal with melted chocolate, peanut butter, and powdered sugar to create an addictive sweet treat. The recipe spread through neighborhoods, schools, and church groups during the 1970s, with each family claiming their version was the original. Making puppy chow required melting chocolate chips and peanut butter together, pouring the mixture over Chex cereal in a large bowl, and tossing until every piece was coated. The chocolate-covered cereal was then dumped into a paper bag filled with powdered sugar, and shaken vigorously until everything was white. Children loved helping shake the bag and sneaking pieces before the process finished. The finished snack was dumped onto wax paper to cool, then stored in airtight containers or large bowls. Puppy chow appeared at birthday parties, sleepovers, holiday gatherings, and regular afternoons when mothers wanted something special. The combination of chocolate, peanut butter, and sweet powdered sugar coating made it impossible to eat just a handful. Kellogg's eventually commercialized the recipe under the name Muddy Buddies, but most families continued calling it Puppy Chow. Tang popsicles transformed the famous orange drink powder into frozen treats that children considered the height of sophistication because astronauts drank Tang in space. These homemade popsicles were incredibly simple to make. Mix Tang powder with cold water according to package directions, pour into popsicle molds or small paper cups, insert wooden sticks, and freeze overnight. The resulting popsicles were bright artificial orange, intensely sweet, and perfectly refreshing on hot summer days. Tang became wildly popular after NASA used it during Gemini missions in 1965, and by the 1970s, every American household kept jars of Tang powder in their pantries. Mothers appreciated that Tang popsicles provided vitamin C while satisfying children's demands for frozen treats. The powder dissolved completely in cold water, creating a smooth consistency without chunks or separation. Some creative families experimented by mixing Tang with lemonade or fruit juice for variations. Children competed to see who could eat their popsicles slowest without them melting. The wooden sticks were saved and reused, collected for craft projects, or used as garden plant markers. Store-bought popsicles existed, but cost significantly more than homemade Tang versions. By the 1990s, concerns about artificial ingredients and the availability of better juice options reduced Tang's popularity dramatically. 10 snacks vanished. Chex Mix, Rice Krispies Treats, popcorn balls, ants on a log, Jell-O jigglers, cinnamon sugar toast, PB&J sandwiches, chocolate chip cookies, puppy chow, and Tang popsicles all disappeared when convenience replaced homemade traditions. The next 10 required more effort, but still faded from American kitchens. Fluffernutter sandwiches combined two uniquely American spreads, peanut butter and marshmallow fluff, into a sandwich so sweet and sticky that children needed napkins, milk, and sometimes a second sandwich to fully satisfy their cravings. This New England creation became a national phenomenon during the 1970s, when marshmallow fluff expanded distribution beyond the Northeast, and television commercials promoted the Fluffernutter as the ultimate kids' sandwich. Making a proper Fluffernutter required spreading creamy peanut butter thickly on one slice of soft white bread and spreading an equally generous layer of marshmallow fluff on another slice, then pressing them together firmly. The key was balance. Too much fluff and it squished out the sides. Too little and the sandwich tasted dry. Some children ate Fluffernutters for lunch, but most consumed them as after-school snacks or weekend treats, because mothers considered them too sugary for regular lunches. The combination of salty peanut butter and impossibly sweet marshmallow created a flavor contrast that was simultaneously wonderful and overwhelming. Eating a Fluffernutter was a messy experience, with fluff sticking to fingers, faces, and everything it touched. A glass of cold milk was absolutely mandatory to wash down the sticky sweetness. Regional variations existed. Some families added banana slices, others grilled the sandwich like a panini, and Massachusetts natives insisted on specific bread brands. By the 2000s, health consciousness and peanut allergy awareness reduced Fluffernutter consumption dramatically. Marshmallow fluff remained available but became increasingly regional, and younger generations often had never heard of Fluffernutters despite their 1970s ubiquity. Celery with cream cheese offered a simpler, tangier alternative to ants on a log for families who wanted nutritious snacks without raisins or peanut butter. This straightforward snack became popular in the 1970s when mothers sought ways to make vegetables appealing to children who otherwise refused to eat anything green. The preparation was nearly identical to ants on a log. Wash celery stalks thoroughly, trim the ends, cut into manageable 3 or 4-inch pieces, and fill the hollow center with softened cream cheese, spread smooth with a butter knife. Unlike ants on a log, this version remained plain without decorative toppings, though some mothers added a sprinkle of paprika or garlic powder for visual appeal and extra flavor. The cream cheese had to be softened at room temperature before use because cold cream cheese was impossible to spread smoothly into the celery's narrow groove. Philadelphia cream cheese dominated American kitchens during this era, and its mild, tangy flavor paired perfectly with celery's crisp, watery crunch. Mothers appreciated that this snack delivered vegetables, dairy, and protein without sugar, making it acceptable even right before dinner. Children were less enthusiastic about plain celery and cream cheese than the raisin-topped version, so mothers often had to persuade them by emphasizing how grown-up the plain version was. The snack appeared regularly in school lunches, afternoon snack plates, and party vegetable trays throughout the decade. By the 1990s, pre-packaged snacks and flavored cream cheese spreads replaced simple celery sticks, and homemade versions became increasingly rare. Cheese and crackers represented the most basic possible snack, requiring zero cooking skills and minimal preparation, yet it satisfied hungry children throughout the 1970s with its simple, salty combination. This snack was so fundamental that even the youngest children could assemble it independently, open a box of saltine crackers, unwrap a block of cheese from the refrigerator, slice it with a butter knife, and place cheese squares on crackers. American mothers kept saltines in constant supply because they served multiple purposes: snacks, soup accompaniments, and emergency stomach settlers for sick children. The cheese varied by family preference, with sharp cheddar being most popular, though Colby, American, and Monterey Jack all had their advocates. Some families bought pre-sliced cheese for convenience, but most purchased blocks that required cutting, giving children practice with knife skills. The proper ratio was debated. Some preferred one thick cheese slice covering the entire cracker. Others liked cutting cheese into quarters for 4 cheese-topped crackers from a single slice. Room temperature cheese spread more easily and tasted better than cold cheese straight from the refrigerator, so experienced snackers planned ahead. Cheese and crackers appeared at every afternoon snack time, accompanied by glasses of milk or juice. The combination provided protein, calcium, and carbohydrates in a form children actually enjoyed. Some families elevated the snack by adding apple slices or grapes on the side. By the 2000s, individually packaged cheese and cracker combinations like Lunchables dominated, eliminating the need for children to assemble their own snacks and ending the homemade tradition. Peanut butter toast was the breakfast snack hybrid that fueled 1970s children through after-school activities, homework sessions, and Saturday morning cartoons. Unlike peanut butter sandwiches that used 2 slices of bread, peanut butter toast was open-faced, allowing the peanut butter to melt slightly into the hot toast and creating a completely different texture and flavor experience. The process was simple but required timing. Pop bread into the toaster, wait for it to finish, immediately spread softened peanut butter across the hot surface while it melted into golden pools, and eat within minutes before it cooled and hardened. The key was using enough peanut butter to create a thick layer that would partially melt, but not so much that it dripped off the edges. Some children preferred smooth peanut butter for easy spreading, while others insisted on crunchy for added texture. Brand loyalty was intense. Jif, Skippy, and Peter Pan each had devoted followers who insisted their brand was superior. Peanut butter toast worked equally well for breakfast, after-school snacks, or late-night studying fuel. It provided substantial protein and calories that kept children satisfied for hours, making it more filling than sweet snacks. Some families drizzled honey over the peanut butter, while others added banana slices or a sprinkle of cinnamon. The snack was eaten standing at the counter, sitting at the kitchen table, or carried on a napkin to eat elsewhere. By the 2000s, pre-made peanut butter crackers and concerns about allergens reduced the frequency of simple peanut butter toast. though it remains one of the most fundamental comfort foods for those who grew up making it. Garlic toast was a savory after-school snack that mothers made when children requested something that tasted like restaurant food but could be assembled quickly at home. This simple creation combined soft white bread, butter, garlic powder, and sometimes Parmesan cheese into a snack that smelled incredible and tasted even better. Making garlic toast required spreading softened butter generously across bread slices, sprinkling garlic powder evenly over the butter, adding a shake of Parmesan cheese if desired, and broiling in the oven until the edges turned golden brown and crispy. The broiler had to be watched carefully because garlic toast could go from perfectly toasted to burnt black in seconds. Smart mothers made extra pieces because children always wanted more once they smelled it baking. The finished toast emerged from the oven bubbling slightly where the butter melted, with crispy edges and a soft center that pulled apart easily. Eating garlic toast fresh from the oven was essential because reheated versions never tasted the same. The smell of garlic and butter filled entire houses, announcing snack time to everyone within range. Some families used fresh minced garlic instead of powder for stronger flavor, while others added Italian seasoning or onion powder for variation. Garlic toast appeared as an after-school snack. 15 snacks forgotten. Fluffernutters, celery with cream cheese, cheese and crackers, peanut butter toast, and garlic toast all vanished when pre-packaged options filled stores. Nobody wanted to spread cream cheese or broil toast when grab-and-go snacks were ready. The next 5 required even more kitchen time. Pancakes were not just breakfast food in the 1970s. Ambitious, hungry children made them as substantial after-school snacks when simpler options would not satisfy their appetite after sports practice or long bus rides home. Making pancakes from scratch required legitimate cooking skills, including measuring ingredients, mixing batter, and managing a hot griddle or frying pan. So this snack was typically reserved for older children or supervised younger ones. Most families used Biscuits or Aunt Jemima pancake mix that required only adding milk and eggs, making the process faster than true from-scratch recipes. The batter was mixed in a large bowl until just combined, with small lumps remaining as overmixing created tough pancakes. A griddle or large frying pan was heated to medium, greased with butter or cooking spray, and the batter was poured in circles to create individual pancakes. The key was flipping at exactly the right moment, when bubbles formed on the surface and edges looked dry. After-school pancakes were served simply with butter and syrup, unlike elaborate breakfast versions that might include berries, whipped cream, or chocolate chips. Children often made silver dollar pancakes that were smaller, faster cooking, and easier to eat as handheld snacks. A stack of warm pancakes with maple syrup provided serious calories and satisfaction that lighter snacks could not match. Some children ate them while doing homework or watching television. Caramel corn was the ultimate homemade treat that required patience, precise timing, and a willingness to risk burnt fingers for sweet, crunchy perfection. This labor-intensive snack became a 1970s favorite during fall and winter, when families wanted special treats for movie nights, holidays, or gift-giving. Making caramel corn started with popping fresh popcorn on the stovetop in a large covered pot with oil, then spreading it across multiple greased baking sheets. Meanwhile, a candy mixture was prepared by boiling together butter, brown sugar, corn syrup, and vanilla until it reached the right temperature on a candy thermometer. The hot caramel was poured over the popcorn and mixed quickly with wooden spoons before it hardened. The trays went into a low oven and baked for about an hour, with stirring every 15 minutes to coat every kernel evenly. The finished caramel corn cooled on the baking sheets, forming large clusters that were broken apart by hand. The coating was crunchy, buttery, and intensely sweet, with a deep caramel flavor that commercial versions could never replicate. Making caramel corn was an all-afternoon project that created significant mess and required constant attention, but the results were worth the effort. Families stored it in tins or jars, though it rarely lasted more than a few days once discovered. Some recipes added peanuts for Cracker Jack-style treats. The smell of caramel and butter baking drew everyone to the kitchen. Fudge was the chocolate confection that mothers made during holidays and special occasions when they wanted to demonstrate serious candy-making skills and create impressive gifts for neighbors, teachers, and relatives. Making real fudge from scratch was challenging, requiring precision with temperatures, timing, and technique that many home cooks struggled to master. The process began by combining sugar, butter, evaporated milk, and chocolate in a heavy saucepan, and cooking while stirring constantly until the mixture reached exactly 234 degrees Fahrenheit on a candy thermometer, the softball stage. The hot mixture was then poured into a bowl and beaten vigorously with a wooden spoon while it cooled, watching carefully for the moment when it lost its gloss and began to thicken. At precisely the right instant, the fudge was quickly spread into a greased pan before it hardened. Timing was everything. Too soon and the fudge would be grainy. Too late and it would harden in the bowl. Successful fudge was smooth, creamy, and intensely chocolatey, with a texture that melted on the tongue. Mothers cut cooled fudge into small squares and stored it in tins or arranged pieces on decorative plates. Some recipes included marshmallows, nuts, or peanut butter for variations. Making perfect fudge was considered a badge of honor. Peanut butter balls were no-bake confections that combined peanut butter, powdered sugar, and butter into sweet, fudgy centers coated with melted chocolate. These homemade candies became 1970s favorites during Christmas and holiday seasons when mothers needed impressive treats that required no oven space and could be made in large quantities. The recipe mixed creamy peanut butter with softened butter and enough powdered sugar to create a stiff dough-like consistency. The mixture was rolled into small balls about 1 inch in diameter and chilled until firm. Meanwhile, chocolate chips or baking chocolate was melted in a double boiler or makeshift version using a bowl over simmering water. Each chilled peanut butter ball was dipped into the melted chocolate using a toothpick or fork, ensuring complete coverage, then placed on wax paper to harden. The finished candies looked professional, with smooth chocolate shells hiding creamy peanut butter centers. Making peanut butter balls was time-consuming, but therapeutic, and mothers often enlisted children to help roll the balls. No-bake cookies were chocolate peanut butter oatmeal drops that solidified without oven time, making them perfect for summer days when turning on the oven was unbearable, or for children who wanted cookies immediately without waiting for baking and cooling. These cookies became wildly popular during the 1970s because they required only stove-top cooking and could be ready to eat within 30 minutes. The recipe combined sugar, butter, cocoa powder, and milk in a saucepan and boiled for exactly 1 minute while stirring constantly. The hot mixture was removed from heat and peanut butter, vanilla, and quick oats were stirred in until everything combined into thick, fudgy batter. Working quickly before the mixture hardened, spoonfuls were dropped onto wax paper and left to cool and set at room temperature. The timing was critical. Boiling too long created dry, crumbly cookies, while underboiling resulted in cookies that never fully hardened. Successful no-bake cookies had a chewy, fudgy texture, with visible oats throughout and intense chocolate flavor. They were eaten as snacks, packed in lunches, or served at casual gatherings. The cookies required no special equipment or skills beyond basic stovetop cooking and measuring ingredients accurately. Haystack cookies earned their descriptive name from their appearance: irregularly shaped mounds that resembled miniature haystacks piled in farm fields. These no-bake treats became a 1970s staple because they required minimal ingredients, no oven, and produced impressive results that looked much more complicated than they actually were. The basic recipe combined butterscotch chips or peanut butter chips melted with a bit of butter in a saucepan over low heat, stirring constantly until smooth and glossy. Once melted, chow mein noodles, and sometimes peanuts or coconut, were stirred into the mixture until every piece was coated with the sweet butterscotch coating. Working quickly before the mixture hardened, spoonfuls were dropped onto wax paper-lined cookie sheets and left to cool completely at room temperature or in the refrigerator. The finished cookies were crunchy, sweet, and had an interesting texture from the thin, crispy noodles that provided structure and crunch. Haystack cookies were popular at church potlucks, school bake sales, and holiday cookie exchanges because they were different from standard cookies and always generated curiosity from people who had never seen them before. Children loved making haystack cookies because the process was simple enough for even young cooks to handle with minimal supervision, and the unusual ingredient combination of butterscotch and chow mein noodles seemed almost magical. The cookies stored well in airtight containers and actually improved after a day or two as the flavors melded together. Some families made variations using chocolate chips instead of butterscotch, or adding mini marshmallows for extra sweetness. Chocolate-covered pretzels combined salty and sweet in a way that seemed revolutionary during the 1970s, when most treats were either entirely sweet or entirely savory. These homemade confections became popular holiday gifts and special occasion treats that mothers made when they wanted something impressive but manageable. The process was straightforward but required patience. Melt chocolate chips or baking chocolate in a double boiler or microwave, dip pretzel rods or twisted pretzels into the melted chocolate until partially or completely covered, place on wax paper, and allow to harden completely at room temperature or in the refrigerator. The key was working with properly tempered chocolate that would harden with a glossy finish rather than a dull, streaky appearance. Some mothers added shortening or paraffin wax to the chocolate to help it set smoothly, though purists insisted on using only pure chocolate. The contrast between crunchy, salty pretzels and smooth, sweet chocolate created an addictive flavor combination that was difficult to stop eating once started. Chocolate-covered pretzels appeared at Christmas cookie exchanges, Valentine's Day treats, and birthday parties throughout the decade. Creative mothers decorated them with sprinkles, crushed candy canes, or drizzled white chocolate over dark chocolate for visual appeal. Children loved helping dip pretzels, though they often ate more chocolate than they used for coating. The treats were arranged on decorative plates, packaged in clear cellophane bags tied with ribbons, or stored in tins between layers of wax paper. Homemade pudding cups were creamy, smooth desserts that mothers made from scratch on the stovetop before instant pudding dominated American kitchens and made the traditional method seem unnecessarily time-consuming. During the 1970s, making real pudding from scratch was still common, though the convenience of instant was already beginning to erode the tradition. The process required combining milk, sugar, cornstarch, and a pinch of salt in a saucepan and cooking over medium heat while stirring constantly with a wooden spoon or whisk until the mixture thickened considerably and coated the back of the spoon. For chocolate pudding, cocoa powder was added to the dry ingredients, while vanilla pudding required adding vanilla extract after cooking was complete. The hot pudding was poured into individual cups or a large bowl, covered with plastic wrap pressed directly onto the surface to prevent skin formation, and refrigerated until completely chilled and set. The finished pudding was impossibly smooth and creamy with a deep, authentic flavor that instant pudding could never replicate. Children could watch the transformation from thin liquid to thick custard during the cooking process, making it educational as well as delicious. Homemade pudding required constant attention and stirring to prevent scorching on the bottom of the pan or lumps forming in the mixture. Mothers made large batches and stored individual portions in the refrigerator for after-school snacks throughout the week. Some families topped pudding with whipped cream, while others added sliced bananas or crushed cookies for extra texture. Brownies from scratch were dense, fudgy chocolate squares that mothers baked in rectangular pans and cut into generous portions for after-school snacks, lunchboxes, and casual desserts throughout the 1970s. Unlike cookies that required shaping individual pieces or cakes that needed frosting, brownies were straightforward: mix, pour, bake, cool, and cut. The process began by melting butter and unsweetened chocolate together in a saucepan, then mixing in sugar, eggs, vanilla, flour, and sometimes cocoa powder for extra chocolate intensity. Some recipes added nuts, typically walnuts or pecans, though this divided families into passionate pro-nut and anti-nut factions. The batter was thick and glossy, poured into a greased 9x13 pan, and baked until a toothpick inserted near the center came out with just a few moist crumbs clinging to it. The key was not overbaking. Perfect brownies had crispy edges and a dense, fudgy center that was almost underdone. Mothers knew their ovens and adjusted baking times accordingly, developing instincts about exactly when to remove brownies for optimal texture. The finished brownies cooled completely in the pan before being cut into squares, though impatient children often begged for warm brownies with the chocolate still gooey. From-scratch brownies delivered intense chocolate flavor and rich texture that boxed mixes struggled to match, though the difference was subtle enough that many families gradually switched to mixes for convenience. Brownies appeared constantly in 1970s kitchens, packed in lunches, served with milk after school, brought to potlucks, and eaten as midnight snacks. Some mothers added chocolate chips to the batter for extra richness, while others swirled cream cheese through the top for marbled brownies. The smell of brownies baking announced their presence throughout entire houses, drawing children from wherever they were playing. Brownies cut from the edges with crispy corners were prized. Snack mix or homemade trail mix was the healthy alternative to candy that mothers assembled from bulk bins and pantry staples, combining nuts, dried fruit, and sometimes chocolate or carob chips into portable, nutritious snacks that children could eat anywhere. During the 1970s, health food stores and natural foods gained popularity, and trail mix represented this movement toward wholesome, unprocessed snacking. Unlike Chex Mix, which was baked and heavily seasoned, trail mix required no cooking and could be customized infinitely based on preferences and budgets. The basic formula combined roasted peanuts, raisins, and M&Ms or chocolate chips, but creative mothers expanded far beyond this simple base. Cashews, almonds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, dried coconut, banana chips, dried apricots, dates, and granola all found their way into various family recipes. Some health-conscious mothers insisted on unsweetened ingredients, while others embraced chocolate and sweetened coconut for better flavor. The ingredients were simply mixed together in a large bowl and stored in jars, canisters, or plastic bags. Children could grab handfuls for after-school snacks, pack small portions in lunchboxes, or take bags on family hikes and road trips. The combination of protein from nuts, natural sugar from dried fruit, and occasional chocolate made trail mix more nutritious than pure candy, while still satisfying sweet cravings. Mothers appreciated that trail mix required no refrigeration and lasted for weeks without spoiling, making it ideal for pantry storage. The name trail mix originated from hikers who needed lightweight, energy-dense food for long treks, but by the 1970s it had become mainstream snacking for non-hikers as well. Some families called it gorp, good old raisins and peanuts, or simply mix, and everyone had opinions about the ideal ratio of ingredients. 25 snacks erased. Haystack cookies, chocolate-covered pretzels, homemade pudding cups, brownies from scratch, and snack mix all disappeared when convenience won. Nobody wanted to melt chocolate, stir pudding constantly, or mix trail mix when stores sold everything ready-made. The final 5 were the simplest but still vanished. Cinnamon roll-ups were the ingenious shortcut version of cinnamon rolls that mothers made when children wanted something special, but time was limited, and yeast dough seemed too complicated. These simple treats used regular sliced white bread, transformed into sweet, cinnamon-flavored pinwheels that baked quickly and satisfied cravings for homemade pastries. The process began by cutting the crusts off white bread slices, then flattening each slice with a rolling pin until thin and pliable. A mixture of softened butter, cinnamon, and sugar was spread across each flattened slice, and the bread was rolled tightly from one end to the other like a small jelly roll. The rolls were placed seam-side down on a greased baking sheet, brushed with melted butter, and baked until golden brown and crispy on the outside. Some mothers secured the rolls with toothpicks to prevent unrolling during baking. The finished roll-ups emerged from the oven warm, sweet, and fragrant with cinnamon, resembling miniature cinnamon rolls without the labor of making yeast dough. Children loved them because they were individual-sized and fun to eat by unrolling them slowly or biting straight through. The contrast between the slightly crispy exterior and soft, sweet interior made them addictive. Cinnamon roll-ups appeared as after-school snacks, weekend breakfast treats, or special surprises in lunchboxes. Some creative mothers added cream cheese to the filling, or drizzled simple icing over the finished rolls for extra sweetness. The recipe was so simple that older children could make them independently, with minimal supervision. Making cinnamon roll-ups used up bread that was starting to go stale, turning potential waste into delicious treats. Represented the healthy snack that mothers encouraged and children actually enjoyed, combining fresh fruit with protein-rich peanut butter into a satisfying combination that was nutritious without tasting medicinal or boring. This simple snack became a 1970s staple because it required minimal preparation, used ingredients every household kept available, and delivered better nutrition than sugary alternatives while still tasting good enough that children did not complain. The preparation was straightforward. Wash an apple thoroughly, cut it into quarters, remove the core and seeds, slice each quarter into thin pieces, and serve with a small bowl of peanut butter for dipping. Some mothers pre-sliced apples and packed them in lunchboxes with individual containers of peanut butter, though the apple slices often turned brown by lunchtime, despite mothers' attempts to prevent oxidation by brushing them with lemon juice. The combination of crisp, slightly tart apple and creamy, salty peanut butter created perfect balance, with the peanut butter's richness complementing the apple's fresh flavor. Children developed personal techniques for eating this snack. Some spread peanut butter thickly on each slice, others dipped lightly for just a taste, and some ate the apple and peanut butter separately without combining them at all. Red Delicious and Golden Delicious apples were most common during the 1970s, though Granny Smith apples gained popularity later for their tartness. The snack provided fiber, vitamins, and protein, making it one of the few treats mothers genuinely approved of serving regularly. Apple slices with peanut butter appeared at afternoon snack time, in packed lunches, as road trip snacks, and as before-dinner appetizers that mothers felt good about serving. Banana bread slices were afternoon snacks that transformed overripe bananas, destined for the trash, into moist, sweet, quick bread that families devoured within days of baking. During the 1970s, wasting food was considered unacceptable, and mothers developed creative solutions for using ingredients before they spoiled, with banana bread representing one of the most successful examples of this thrifty mindset. The classic recipe required mashing very ripe bananas, the browner and spottier the better, and mixing them with melted butter, sugar, eggs, vanilla, flour, baking soda, and salt. Some recipes included sour cream or yogurt for extra moisture, while others added chopped walnuts or chocolate chips for texture and flavor. The batter was poured into greased loaf pans and baked until a toothpick inserted in the center came out clean, producing dense, moist bread with intense banana flavor. The key was using truly ripe bananas because underripe fruit created dry, flavorless bread that disappointed everyone. Mothers often kept overripe bananas in the freezer specifically for banana bread, thawing them when ready to bake. Fresh banana bread was eaten warm with butter melted into each slice, creating an indulgent treat that tasted like dessert but qualified as acceptable afternoon snacking. The bread stayed moist for days when wrapped tightly, making it perfect for school lunches, breakfast, or anytime snacks. Some families toasted banana bread slices before spreading butter, adding textural contrast between the crispy exterior and tender interior. Banana bread appeared constantly in 1970s kitchens because bananas were inexpensive, quick to ripen, and the bread was foolproof for even novice bakers. The smell of banana bread baking announced itself throughout entire houses, drawing family members from different rooms to investigate. Making banana bread became a ritual that children learned early, often helping mash bananas and measure ingredients alongside mothers. By the 2000s, pre-made banana bread and muffins sold in bakery sections eliminated the need for home baking, and many families simply threw away overripe bananas rather than using them. The connection between brown bananas and fresh bread was lost on younger generations who never learned the traditional recipe. Today, banana bread remains more popular than many vintage recipes, experiencing periodic resurgences through social media and baking trends. But the frequency of home baking has decreased significantly from its 1970s peak, when every household seemed to have a loaf cooling on the counter at any given time. Oatmeal cookies were the wholesome alternative to chocolate chip cookies that mothers baked when they wanted something that felt healthier while still satisfying children's demands for homemade treats. These hearty cookies combined rolled oats with butter, sugar, eggs, flour, and warm spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, creating substantial cookies that provided more staying power than lighter alternatives. During the 1970s, oatmeal was promoted heavily for its health benefits and fiber content, and oatmeal cookies benefited from this positive association with wholesome nutrition. The recipe began by creaming softened butter with white and brown sugars until fluffy, then beating in eggs and vanilla extract. Flour, baking soda, salt, and spices were mixed separately before being combined with the butter mixture, and finally rolled oats were stirred in until every flake was incorporated. Some families insisted on adding raisins for traditional oatmeal raisin cookies, while others absolutely refused to contaminate their oatmeal cookies with fruit. This division created passionate debates within families and among friends about the proper way to make oatmeal cookies. More adventurous bakers added chocolate chips, butterscotch chips, coconut, or chopped dates for variation. The dough was dropped by spoonfuls onto greased cookie sheets and baked until the edges turned golden brown, while centers remained slightly soft. Oatmeal cookies required careful timing because overbaking created hard, dry discs, while underbaking left them too soft to transport or store properly. The finished cookies were chewy, filling, and tasted like wholesome comfort. Mothers packed oatmeal cookies in lunchboxes because they traveled well and provided better nutrition than pure sugar cookies. The cookies appeared regularly as after-school snacks, especially with cold milk that complemented their slight sweetness and oat flavor. Some families made enormous oatmeal cookies the size of saucers, while others preferred smaller, uniform portions. Oatmeal cookies stayed fresh for days when stored in airtight containers, making them practical for busy families. By the 2000s, pre-made cookie dough and bakery oatmeal cookies offered convenience that homemade versions could not match. The specific process of measuring oats, mixing dough, and baking fresh cookies seemed unnecessarily time-consuming when acceptable alternatives were readily available. The tradition of making oatmeal cookies from scratch declined significantly, surviving mainly among dedicated home bakers and older generations who remembered the superior taste and texture of truly homemade versions. Sugar cookies were the ultimate blank canvas for home bakers during the 1970s, serving as simple everyday treats, decorated holiday cookies, or special occasion confections, depending on how they were shaped and finished. These versatile cookies required basic ingredients found in every pantry: butter, sugar, eggs, vanilla, flour, baking powder, and salt, combined into a dough that could be rolled, cut, and baked into infinite shapes. The classic recipe creamed softened butter with white sugar until light and fluffy, beat in eggs and vanilla, then mixed in flour and baking powder to form soft dough that required refrigeration before rolling. Chilled dough prevented cookies from spreading too much during baking and made handling easier. The dough was rolled on floured surfaces to about quarter-inch thickness and cut with cookie cutters in various shapes: circles, hearts, stars, animals, seasonal shapes, and holiday themes. Plain sugar cookies were simply sprinkled with sugar before baking and served undecorated, while fancier versions were frosted after cooling with colored icing and decorated with sprinkles. Sugar cookies baked quickly at moderate temperature until edges just barely turned golden, producing tender cookies with slight crispness around edges and softer centers. They cooled on wire racks before being stored in tins or decorated according to occasion. Plain sugar cookies appeared constantly as everyday snacks, lunchbox treats, and after-school munchies throughout the 1970s. The same basic recipe transformed into elaborate decorated cookies for Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter, Halloween, and birthdays by simply changing shapes and decorations. Children helped cut shapes, especially during holidays when cookie making became family activity spanning entire afternoons. The smell of vanilla and butter baking was quintessentially homey and comforting. Sugar cookies survived longer than many other homemade treats because their simplicity and versatility kept them relevant even as convenience foods dominated. However, refrigerated cookie dough that could be sliced and baked without rolling gradually eroded the rolled and cut tradition. By the 2000s, pre-made sugar cookies from bakeries offered professional decorating and convenience that homemade versions struggled to match. The ritual of rolling dough, cutting shapes, and decorating cookies became increasingly rare except during holidays when families maintained traditions. Today, sugar cookies remain recognized and occasionally baked, but the frequency has declined dramatically from 1970s levels when they were weekly occurrences in most American households rather than special occasion-only endeavors reserved for dedicated bakers and holiday traditions. 30 homemade snacks that defined childhood in the 1970s. Snacks that every American kid grew up eating after school, at sleepovers, and during Saturday morning cartoons. Then something happened that changed everything. By the year 2000, all 30 of these snacks had vanished from kitchens across America without anyone noticing. Chex Mix stopped being made at home when Gardettos filled grocery store shelves. Popcorn balls disappeared when microwave popcorn arrived. Rice Krispies treats became something you bought instead of made. Puppy Chow faded when Muddy Buddies hit stores. Jell-O Jigglers lost their magic when prepackaged fruit snacks took over. Cinnamon sugar toast was replaced by Pop-Tarts. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches became Uncrustables. Homemade chocolate chip cookies turned into break-and-bake dough. Tang popsicles were forgotten when Otter Pops filled freezers. Kool-Aid ice cubes melted away with bottled drinks. Every single one of these snacks required time, effort, and actual cooking skills. Parents had to measure ingredients. Kids had to wait while things baked or froze. Families worked together in the kitchen. That was the point. These snacks were not just food. They were traditions. They were memories. They were the reason you rushed home from school. Now they are gone, replaced by convenience, speed, and plastic packaging. But you just rediscovered all 30. If your parents or grandparents made any of these for you, share this with them, because once the last person who remembers these snacks is gone, they disappear from history forever.